Outside of that 12 minutes where I kind of did a stupid thing of switching over to Liverpool Genk, I actually didn't see any of the remaining 78 minutes of Liverpool Genk last night. You were watching it?
Yeah, I think the general consensus, they didn't really get out of second gear. They've stumbled a bit through the group, but bigger tests lie ahead. I've said for about 6 weeks now, I don't think Liverpool are actually playing that well, but they keep eking out results. So you can look at this as a good or a bad thing. I thought that the hole they got themselves into in Villa, to get out of that was really laudable. But I think there are certainly doubts about their form. Some of their players, Salah in particular. I think Man City's going to be a huge test for him. This is a really, really, I know 6 pointers and all that, but this is an enormously big game for Liverpool, because City have a better goal difference, and I think they probably will have a better goal difference at the end of the season. Victory for City very much puts it back into their hands, and they're still, to my mind, they're still favourites over Liverpool, because I think they've been more convincing, despite not being entirely convincing themselves, particularly defensively. But
why do you say that? What is it about Manchester City that convinces you more than Liverpool?
It's probably the calibre of players they have, and the fact that they really haven't. To me, they really haven't gotten going yet. Whereas with Liverpool, you're looking at.
Like Salah hasn't gotten going yet, if we're using that logic.
Salah didn't have a good season last season, to my mind, in comparison to what he's capable of. And time again, attacks break down because of Salah. Either he's a little bit greedy, which is not necessarily a bad thing, but at times he takes the wrong option. But to me, he kind of looks like his pace isn't what it was either. And if we go back to the start of last season, where Salah effectively didn't have Salah's had very little breaks. I'd love to know what time off Salah's had, since the start of 2.5 seasons ago, or 2 and a bit seasons ago, because obviously in action for his country, and again in the off season, he didn't have much of a break. And to me, I just wonder how long he's going to hold his place. Liverpool, they're not laden, like Origi was okay last night, they're not laden with replacements for him, but to my mind, of the three, that holy trinity up front, he's definitely the least. He's definitely the most vulnerable to being dropped at the moment. Anyway, I think he's 5 goals in the league this season from 10 games, which is okay. But his record against the big teams last season was poor. He really, most of the big games he didn't play that well.
You think there's actually risk of him perhaps not being included in the first choice 11 at some point this
season?
Absolutely, yeah. Is the drop off not extraordinary between the starting front three and the rest? Of course, Origi can come in and be this cult hero when he's needed, when it is necessary for Origi to play some minutes, but it's never been in Jurgen Klopp's minds to actually rotate, especially for the big games.
Not really, no. He'll definitely play at the weekend. I think Charlie Nicholas kind of alluded to it at the weekend, that he thought he was particularly poor against Villa by all accounts. So I was only kind of half watching it here. But every time, just watch Salah, the amount of attacks that break down after he gets the ball. I think that's what's quite interesting. And again, there were flashes of brilliance last night as well. But to me, he's definitely not the season he had 2 seasons ago was quite extraordinary, but I think he's quite a good bit off that level. And Sunday's going to be huge for Salah and huge for Liverpool as well, definitely, because they've limped through a lot of games where and defensively as well, quite interesting. They're definitely not at the races defensively compared to where they're at. The high line is causing them problems, and I think Van Dijk played on the Genk player for the goal last night without it exactly being his fault, but there are definitely frailties there. Man City will see this as a great opportunity, I think.
Yeah, I'm just looking through the Charlie Nicholas quotes for anybody who's missed them. Liverpool are not at their best. People might suggest that once they get going, they will be ruthless, but they are getting away with it currently, he said. Napoli and Manchester United matches were reality checks, but they could have been 2 or 3 down by the time they rescued things at Villa. Then on Mo Salah, he says he was really average at the weekend, as was Roberto Firmino, so Jurgen Klopp may leave a couple out and change it up. It normally is Firmino who he rests, but I would leave him in with Mane and leave Salah out. He may not like it, but it needs to happen. So yeah, that's exactly what you're saying. I'm not sure if that, I just think that the front three, Virgil van Dijk, and Alisson, and Robertson, Trent Alexander-Arnold, maybe not at the same level as Andy Robertson, are just undroppables at this point. And the front three are undroppable because of the quality behind them. There is...
What quality in midfield, though? The midfield is so functional that they're really reliant on that front three. being at its best in those big games, because their midfield isn't world class really, but they get away with it because the front three is
That's
so
why we
dynamic.
see a little bit more rotation. Granted, I know he's kind of got a bit more of a formula over the last few weeks.
Yeah.
But that's why we have seen rotation in that position, is because they just don't have a midfield three that is by definition world class, just like the front three is.
And also they've to work so hard, and they've so many games that like rotation is fine. But I wonder at some stage, does he think, I can't change this formation a bit and possibly play 2 up top and maybe add a bit of strength to midfield?
Well, that would be a drastic change.
It would. You can't really see it at the moment, but Salah's definitely not undroppable. I mean, he hasn't been undroppable I thought he was lucky to be starting all of last season, because he's been so many games where he was 5, 6 out of 10, and Liverpool fans seem to be a little bit blind to that, and maybe look to the extraordinary goal he got against Chelsea, and also the fact that he got that crucial goal against Napoli in the group stages. But most of the big games he didn't do a lot, and that's totally indisputable. And I think I'd have sympathy for Salah, because I think like a lot of players now, he's basically plays too much football. A lot of players that play for the South American teams, this has been pointed out about Sanchez as well, that Sanchez has been completely vilified in English football, but the argument's also been made. I remember one of the football correspondents from Europe on this show before, that like he plays so much football that he's so little of a break, and I'd love to Mo Salah to actually tell people how much time off he's had from football over the last 2.5 years compared to your average sportsman.
Yeah, we have had a lot of feedback from earlier on in the show.
Yeah,
from
throwing shade at Mo Salah.
Well, let's go through some of the comments online. Noel Cahill has been in touch to say Liverpool are good, but just not clinical in games. Watch the bloody games, Johnny. Connor Joy says, is this the same Liverpool that are unbeaten that Johnny is talking about? Using Charlie Nicholas to back up your argument isn't a good start.
No,
Liverpool played at walking pace last night, and are just getting the game over with. All about Sunday. Just to get 2 more here. Declan Kelly, can't agree, lads. If they don't perform at the weekend, then it's a discussion. This is regarding Mo Salah. But thus far, they're doing what's needed. Salah looked sharper last night, so he's playing into form. And John Donoghue says first half in Old Trafford didn't look like title-winning form.
No, but from Liverpool.
These are all in relation to Mo Salah, and I presume the general thrust of it is.
Look, you can go through a spate of games here. Liverpool were lucky to beat Chelsea away, which at the moment doesn't look that bad a result. Didn't play particularly well against Manchester United. Didn't play well against Sheffield United. Didn't play well against Leicester. Were lucky to win that game. Didn't really play well against Villa. Were 1-0 down with 5 minutes left. Conceded 3 goals at home to a fairly average team in the Champions League. Looked ropey enough defensively last night. Lost to Napoli, which was one of their proper tests this season.
They actually played well in that game.
Against Napoli?
Yeah.
They played okay.
They should have won that game.
In Naples?
Yeah.
I wouldn't say they should have won that game.
They had chances, yeah.
Yeah, I don't remember them having enough chance to say they were
They actually
dominant.
had chances. Mane and Salah actually weren't clinical enough.
Yeah,
that
that
night.
was one night where they really looked off.
Yeah.
But the Salah debate for me is Liverpool fans will go on the defensive now, and that is a classic defensive of somebody who hasn't won anything for a long time and wants to believe that it's going to happen. But Liverpool are not
Champions
actually.
League in June. They won the Champions League.
The league
in
is what matters at this stage. But so the Liverpool fans will go on the defensive. Oh, look at them! Like how many games have they won? And their record's great. But if you can say that Liverpool are playing really well this season, you don't know anything about football, because they're not.
But they did the same last season. They start off like this and they'll hit their form. In terms of Salah, I would never take him out of the team, because it just disrupts the whole balance of the team as well. Who are Liverpool's 2 most creative players? The 2 fullbacks. So the beauty of having Mane on the left-hand side and Salah on the right means their natural instinct is to cut inside. That's what defenders are going to think as well. What does that do? That creates space for the 2 fullbacks to get into, the likes of Robertson and Trent Alexander-Arnold. The Old Trafford game, Salah didn't play. Unfortunately, what happened then was Mane was shifted out to the right, so Origi could play on the left. Mane isn't as effective on the right. So Salah, and Kenny alluded to this as well, that first season, he
was off the chart.
It was a freak season. He still finished joint top scorer in the league last season, him, Mane and Aubameyang. So also as well, when you have him in the team, he mightn't be in that kind of form that he was in when he scored 44 goals that season. But if you're an opposition defender, you're hardly thinking, Salah's not as good as he used to be, I'll just leave him free. He occupies defenders as well. Now, one thing I'd be a little bit critical of him in the last few games is taking too much out of the ball. He wants to score so much, and Klopp left him on last night
for him to score.
Probably thinking he could score. And in terms of the performance last night, I was looking at it and I was just thinking, if Genk make it 2-2, Liverpool will go and score a third goal. They were played so within themselves. It's all about Sunday. I felt like this going into the Spurs game, that Liverpool were going to absolutely tear into Spurs. I remember I was sitting down in the pub to watch it, and I was there before the game. I was like, lads,
Happy days.
Watch this now. Liverpool are going to tear Spurs apart.
They're 1-0 down now.
47 seconds in, I was like, Jesus Christ, what has happened? So I'm expecting a bit of the same actually on Sunday. I think Liverpool are primed for this game.
OxladeChamberlain is very much an interesting one because he has, like, his goal scoring this season gives them an option from midfield that they just don't have. They're so reliant on those three players scoring goals up top.
I completely agree.
I know you're a big fan of the Ox, and he obviously.
Does the Ox, like, could the Ox fit into a different position? If, like, are they going to be? Yeah, like, are they always going to play the three up top? In which case, could the Ox play up top as well? Because he could, because defensive midfield is not his game. So what does he offer as a midfielder? Mainly goals, and like amazing goals this season. Absolutely, he looks like he's going to score every time he's at the edge of the box.
Alex Oxlade-Chamberlain would be brilliant in the Manchester City system. Granted, it's not drastically different to how Liverpool play, but in midfield it is, with their advanced number 8s, the Kevin De Bruyne's, your David Silvas. I'd love to see Alex Oxlade-Chamberlain in those sort of positions, whereas Liverpool's midfielders, it seems to me, are often a bit more reserved, and it's just,
feed
over
the ball
the
to top three.
Well, I think the way you could play him on Sunday, and he's a great record against City. He scored that Champions League goal. He scored in the 4-3 as well at Anfield. So you can play Fabinho and Jordan Henderson, because Jordan Henderson will cover the ground for you. And then Alex Oxlade-Chamberlain can play in... So you can almost on the left-hand side. So you've Fabinho sitting in front of the front or the back four, then Henderson slightly out to the right, and then Oxlade-Chamberlain to the left. Now, they don't have to stick to those positions, but because he's dynamic as well, he can get around the pitch. And if he gets to within 25 yards out and he has a side and goal, we know he can absolutely hammer one in. And as I said, he's done it a couple of times against Manchester City. So there's certainly a call for him to start on Sunday, and Klopp talked about him after the Villa game. He said Oxlade-Chamberlain made a huge difference when he came on. He talked about him last night as well, and trying to get between the lines, and that's why I think there's a very good chance he will start.
His goal in Genk probably didn't get the love it deserved as well. The technique to do that, like,
brilliant,
was just like outside the foot, literally inch perfect.
The goal last night was quality as well. The way he just turned and
in a flash, like in a time when they kind of needed a goal as well.
Jimmy McCullough's been in touch to say, nailing VAR with his nightclub scenario. Brilliant morning conversation. We've all been there. So it's not just hate coming for you this morning, Johnny. Your VAR comparisons are getting a lot of love.
No, but it is a good wider debate though. Like, is it kind of taking the joy out of a goal? And like, you should, like, a goal is an amazing thing. And when you score a goal and you're a striker and you look up to see that the linesman hasn't, like, that feeling of relief, to have to wait kind of 20 seconds and kind of hover around and say maybe not. Is VAR doing more damage than good at the moment in terms of the enjoyment of the game? And that's probably a big question. I'm with Phil on this. I think we need a campaign. We need to campaign on this, Phil.
I was trying to work out over the weekend, because this is the first season it's in the Premier League. It's obviously been in Germany, it's been in Spain, it's been in Italy. And I was trying to figure out, is it just the fact that the Premier League officials are so bad? Is this why VAR isn't been that successful in the Premier League so far? I don't watch as many games in those other leagues that I mentioned. I watch games in those leagues, but not to the same extent I would the Premier League. So I'm trying to work out, do they have the same problems, or is this more with the Premier League because the officials are so bad?
How far away are we from an instantaneous decision? Like, put it to you this way, if you're playing a game of FIFA, you're never going to get an incorrect offside call. So, like,
tell you what,
in a video game, there is an ability to say that person is at that level, that person's in that level. Like, I'm not saying that it's incredible whatsoever. It's completely different, but I don't know. Surely there is a point that this technology gets to where it isn't instantaneous, where it's like tick. It features all the different things that we have built in to our algorithm here. That is a perfect goal. And then there is, like, I don't know, big green tick up on the big screen. The player doesn't need to look at the forward official anymore, or at the linesman anymore. They're looking up at the screen and they're like, perfect goal. If he
that's a dystopian future, you know. That's like a computer
game. For me, Johnny.
I did watch one bookmaker did like a piece of Shamrock Rovers players playing FIFA against each other before the cup final, and
who was the best player?
it was Jack Byrne, Graham Burke, Aaron McAniff, and Aaron Green, but. Oh my God! Like, it looks so good. Like, I haven't played computer games in years. Like, it was off the charts. Like the passes you could do and all this.
Yeah.
If I got any of those consoles, good luck. Like, I'd have
Same.
You'd be done.
I had to get rid of Championship Manager years ago because I was staying up till 3 in the morning. I was so engrossed, and I wasn't far off putting on a suit for the cup final.
I had mates who used to do that.
Yeah.
They'd, like, for the cup final, they'd dress up and like take photos of themselves and all. I still remember playing my brother the Sega, the Mega Drive, like for 6 or 7 hours on end. Next thing, my mother like comes into our room and like trips over the Sega, and the whole thing is plugged out. Yeah. And he's like, no. There was the simpler days, like when
But this one is like pacing up and down beside the laptop, shouting, "Press up!" Then go to the laptop, press up. That's it. It is 56 minutes past 8. Phil, you need to leave us to go back and do the day job.
Give us your Liverpool again.
What?
Your Suey.
Liverpool.
It's just one word.
So good.
I think it sweated his appetite for more though.